Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the North East Non-League Show, sponsored by DJ Private Hire, Gateway Accountancy Services Limited, Elite Goalkeeper Academy, Motivate, and Danny Lay Plumbing and Heating. Tonight is another looking back with, and tonight we're looking back with Scott Fenwick. Scott, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight.
Spot on, mate. I appreciate you asking us to come on.
Excellent. Like I say, thank you for giving up your time. I know, like we say, just been chatting about the Newcastle game. From the wrong knife here. I know you could have been down there tonight, couldn't you?
Yeah, I've just had an update there to see if Forest have just scored.
It was worth not going. But a great career so far to chat about, like you say, not finished yet, which we'll get on to towards the end as well. But start with the younger days playing, and obviously playing in all the academies in the North East. How was that time for yourself?
You think it was, looking back, obviously I've done a bit of coaching and stuff in my later career now, but like looking back, it was really, really intense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got picked up by Leeds when I was 6-year-old, a scout called Kevin Finnegan. So I used to travel down to Leeds on a Tuesday and Thursday night from being like 6 and 7-year-old. I know there was obviously Carl Magnet and there was a lad called Mark Anderson. The three of us used to travel down, and then they were like a year and 2 years older than me at school. So the academies brought this strange rule in where you had to be within 90 minutes of the training facility if you're under a certain age. So it was a case of Kevin was like, I'm going to ring like Newcastle, blah, 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 and say that like we need to get you in somewhere. So it came like I had the choice of like Newcastle, Sunderland, Borough from being like a 7-year-old kid. And obviously Newcastle was my team. So I ended up going there like from being 7-year-old and got stuck in the system all the way up.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like you say, you look like 7-year-old, 6-year-old and stuff, and a lot of people kind of don't realise the effort, the time, the travelling, the commitment that goes on. I mean, after you go through all that time, and we spoke with loads of players on the show where they've kind of gone through the academies, gone through the scholarships and stuff like that, and they kind of think, wow, I just need a break now. How was it like for you after, like you say, the time in the academies?
It was a case of it, because obviously I was a 90s kid, so like it was the case of where academies were coming out of like centre of excellences in becoming academies. So I felt like in my younger days, being really young, we were like the kind of transitional age groups that were like all the new rules were getting tested on. So I mean, even like little things of like probably when I went to like 10 and 11-year-old, like they used to stop us from playing for like the school team. Like you weren't allowed to play like boys could football. Like obviously like the better players in the region would get picked up for like with district teams and stuff, and I'd play for the district, and then they'd find out and be like, oh, you can't do that either. So I think like looking back, it was like you miss out on part of your childhood from being in the academy. I know that obviously much better now, but when I do look back and I've had like the odd conversations like with my dad and stuff about when I was younger, like it would have been nice to have had more of an open childhood in terms of like maybe playing with your mates and enjoying it more, because it was very, very intensive for me, like straight away. And sometimes you would be like, oh, like, did I really want to go to training? Like when your mates and stuff were doing it, because that's all I kind of did.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I know I was about 15, 16. I was trying at Leeds at the time, and obviously your friends going to these house parties, and you think, I can't go. Got to make sure I'm going to go for a run, go to the gym. But you look back now, you kind of think, why did you do that at the time, don't you?
I think when I got older at that age, like I didn't mind making the sacrifices, because like by that age, like I knew what I wanted to do, and like I knew by making those sacrifices I'd get there. But I think like I just remember like being as a like 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old, like there was me and my best friend at the time, Alex Francis, like we both were in Newcastle together, and like we'd go to the trials for the district knowing that we're going to get selected, and then like having your teacher pull you to one side being like, oh, like we've had a letter through of Newcastle, like you're not allowed to go, and you're like, like what?
Yeah.
So it was mad. It was easier in secondary school.
And like you said, after that, the move to Gretna came around. And what made you kind of go to Gretna, obviously then come back to Newcastle, Benfield, and North East?
It was like Gretna came in out the blue. I think they'd obviously signed a lad called Nathan Fisher from down our way when he got released from Borough. And then I remember going in and having like a 2-week trial. And I remember like obviously I knew some of the boys that were there. Like Nicky Devedix was there. He was a couple of years older than me. There was actually a lad called Andy Brown who was a couple of years younger than me, who actually was at Sunderland with my brother. and he was on trial there. And a lad who got released from Newcastle around the similar, like around when he was 16, was Josh Gillies. He was up there.
Oh yes, yeah.
And then it was kind of like, I remember I played a few games like when I got released, and for Redjuff, and there was like obviously a scout there, Craig Brown, and he was just like, listen, like we're Gretna, we're not too far away. Do you want to come in? You're the perfect age for like a scholarship or like a first year pro and whatnot. And I went there, and just before you know it, I was like in amongst them, like training with everyone. Obviously, they offered us the contracts and stuff, and then a couple of months later, you're like, oh, the club's going bust. There's no money for you anymore. We're not paying you. You just need to go home. But like what people forget is like I was registered with them, so when the club went like bankrupt, like all of the players, like we were actually still contracted to the SFA. So you weren't. So if you look back on everyone's careers who were at Gretna at the time, it was like months and months before anyone went and signed for anyone, because the SFA had your registration and you literally couldn't physically sign for anyone. Like unless I remember Kyle Norton went back to like Swansea, I think he was on loan from. But like obviously he was one of the only ones from a professional club. Like Danny Granger, I think Danny Granger trained for Hearts were like months and months and months, but he didn't actually sign until like the January or the July. I can't actually remember. So it was Bakes, obviously Paul Baker. It obviously took over Newcastle Benfield, and obviously Bakes was doing a bit of work for like Newcastle, so he kind of knew about us from being young. And it was a case of like, listen, Scotty, come in and enjoy your football again. You can sign a non-contract. He was like, I've got Richard Brodie here. He was like, I've got John Campbell here. He's like, I've got Guy Bates here. He was like, Ian Graham. He was like, these are lads who have like, they're a few years older than you. That they've had like a touch of like pro deals and stuff like that. And he was like, you'll learn loads from them. So I just wanted to play football. You know what I mean? I was still only 18. I was like 18, 19, and like not getting any money, but still under contract, like obviously getting offered to go trials anywhere. But I was like, I don't know if you've got that little bit of like, not so much arrogance, but you kind of think like, why am I trialing? Like, I just want to play football, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go through all the politics. So when he was like, listen, just come in and play football for me, I just went and absolutely loved it.
Yeah, some great names there as well. And in 2012, obviously the move to Durham City, and you spent 2 years there, scored over 50 goals, and it was a great time for yourself and obviously that squad as well, wasn't it, that time, Durham?
Yeah, I mean, I knew Bakes was gonna. If Bakes doesn't leave Newcastle Benfield, I probably don't leave. You know what I mean? But I loved him. Like I loved him that much, and obviously he took a full-time job somewhere else. There was rumors of like Newcastle Blue Star starting back up.
Right.
And like he was obviously gonna maybe get his manager's job back there and like take like me and John Campbell and stuff with him, but it didn't happen. And then Durham came in, and I knew obviously Durham Celtic, the project of like they had obviously just come down from like the Evo stick because of the financial troubles. But like the chairman and like Dickie Ord and stuff, who was the manager at the time, was like, we've got this model where we want to fly back up the league straight away. And by that time, obviously, I'm still only 22, and I was thinking like, go there, a bigger audience, like it's a bigger club, you know what I mean? It's got more history and stuff. And I thought I'll get there and just get my feet under the table, and like it was perfect for us really. Like that's some good lads who had came from the leagues above who could you kind of learn from, you know what I mean? And like obviously look, they let some of us like the younger lads kind of just get on with football, and we just kind of flew back up.
Yeah, like you say, you look at that squad and the quality of the players, and even after obviously the trouble again at Durham City, they all went on to have good careers in the Northern League and even higher, didn't they? Really?
Yeah, there was just some good lads there. Like you had your James Oates and stuff who had played like much higher. Graham Irvin, it obviously had a good Northern League career. James Winter was a professional at Hartlepool for a long time, and he was mad as a box of frogs. James, like I've always come across goalkeepers that are really like. There's always, if a goalkeeper's not a bit weird, it's not right. If that makes sense, like you don't come across a goalkeeper who's normal, and James, he was one of them where like just a great keeper, and you could see he'd been around. Jim Provitt obviously came in for a bit as like a goalkeeper coach. He obviously had Dickie, who was an ex-pro himself. And then when we got the new managers in like Adam Furness and Ian Skinner, they were like probably the first taste of like a modern day coach that I'd had. So you're thinking going back as like 2012, which it feels like a lifetime ago now, but like all this like playing out from the back and stuff like that. Like I remember Ian Skinner was doing that with us like 10, 12 years ago.
A lot of people mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, like Skins and Adam, they were like good cop, bad cop. Was a bit more like straight talking. I think that's why I appreciated the both of them, because they'd give us an outline, they'd give us a job, and it would be like, this is what I want from you, this is what I want you to do. But like they had this obviously philosophy of like, the Northern League had a reputation of like, boom, smash it to the big striker and play from there. But like he wouldn't allow it to do that. Like like split wide, fullbacks had to be high. Like I had to drop into a pocket, and like my strike partner had go in behind. And like when I think back now, like what 34, like I'd been doing that since I was 21, 22 with them. I think that's probably why we loved it so much. And you know what I mean? I think if that squad had maybe stayed together, like I think we probably would have challenged, like, because obviously we challenged Spenny and Darlow them 2 years while there. But I think eventually, like, if we had all stick together, I think we would have probably been the big fish in that league eventually.
No, it was a great squad at the time. And like you say, the time after Durham and the short spell at Dunstan, and obviously still scoring goals, doing well. Was the clubs kind of sniffing up higher at the time?
Yeah, well, people forget, right? So when I was at Durham in the second season, like I knew teams were watching us. Like I had a little, like obviously Olivier Bernard became the chairman.
Yeah.
And Olivier was like, obviously he had contacts and stuff in the game, and I knew people were, because obviously I was scoring a lot of goals, and I knew people were starting to come and watch us again. And then I had a spell out with my knee where I got keyhole on my knee, so I'd missed a couple of months. So I thought like, oh, I've killed myself here. But I managed to obviously get back fit, and towards the end of that season with Durham, I started scoring loads of goals again. And then it all started from still being at Durham. We got a lad in on loan from Carlisle, a goalkeeper called Lewis Brass. So yeah, so the midweek games, the coach from like Tony Craig, the goalkeeper coach, and the first team coach from Carlisle were coming down to watch him. And then obviously, like I caught their eye, and Tony Craig had like pulled us to one side and said, "Listen, like the first team coach kind of like likes you. Like, do you want to come in? Do you want to come in for a week?" And I was like, "Of course I do." You know what I mean? And
Definitely.
this is where I started I started to understand what like the politics in football were like. So Carlisle had obviously made like, because I was a contract player at Durham, so Carlisle had like made like an actual like, we want to take him on a week's trial, like, or 2 week trial or whatever it was, like he needs to come up, blah blah. And then Olivia Bernard had said you can cover his wages for like that 2 weeks.
No way.
And I was like, what? Like, eh? And they were like, well, no, if like we offer like lads a chance to get into the game, like that's still your responsibility. So he was kind of saying, oh well, you can only go on trial if they pay your wages. And I was like, I remember telling my dad that, and he was like, tell him you don't want your wages, just like tell him you'll pay for them yourself. But like you even when you go on trial, you still need, I don't know what the rules are, but you still need the relevant paperwork because you're a contracted player to have permission. And I still needed permission to go into Carlisle. You know what I mean? And it was towards the end of the season, so I think Carlisle were going to probably take us on trial and let us train with them for a couple of weeks or a couple of months or whatever, and then maybe invite us into pre-season or whatever when the season was finished. But it never happened. It never happened. I never actually went in on trial. But like Tony Craig at the time was like, "Listen, it'll happen. It'll happen," kind of thing. Then the kind of season finished, and obviously my whole opinion of Durham had just literally changed. Then I was like a young lad of like, you have kind of stopped me getting back into the pro game, which is where I've always wanted to go. Like, there's no way on God's earth I'm like staying here. And what it was is like, Dickey had left, Adam and Skinner then left because there's like stuff behind the scenes were happening, and we got Ian Chandler.
Oh yes,
so
yeah.
Chandler had came in, and I literally met him for a coffee in Durham, and he offered us a new contract, like ridiculous money and stuff. You know what I mean? For the Northern League at the time, like you're talking a long time ago, and he was kind of like, whatever you want, you can have. And I just said, I was like, it's not about that. I was like, this club's like messed me around and stopped me going back to a level where I know I can kind of play. So fast forward the summer, like I went on holiday. I remember like mobs and for some reason, just something triggered in my head. Like, I didn't have a single bit of drink. I was as fit as I could be. Like, every morning I was running on holiday before, like, I'd went out and stuff. And, like, I just had this feeling that, like, I was just going to make sure I started the season, like, and smashed it because I knew these, like, clubs were and these scouts were, like, coming to watch us. So the part of us signing for Dunstan was, like, Billy Irwin had obviously rang us all summer, like, bring you here, it's your local club, like, you should have been here when you were young. You know what I mean? Because, like, when we finished at Redriff, a lot of, like, the lads there that went to Dunstan, like, obviously I went kind of up to Gretna, then across the water. So I think people probably thought I was going to sign for Dunstan as soon as I come home, and it never happened. But the reason I signed for them over everyone else were, like, obviously Spenny and stuff were in, Darlow and stuff were in, that obviously just been promoted. So it was nice to feel wanted because I could have went anywhere that summer. But I said to Billy Irwin, like, Billy, I will sign for Dunstan, but I'm not signing a contract. And he was like, nah.
Yeah.
He was like, nah. We need you on a contract. I was like, listen, I was like, I'll shake your hand now. Like, I remember I met him in the gold medal down at, like, right near my house. And I was like, I will literally sign for you right now and I'll agree it. I'll shake your hand, but I was like, I'm not signing a contract. And it was like, him and like Tony Harrison, like, they kind of walked off in the gold medal for about like 5 minutes, and I was just sitting, like, with my cap on in the corner, like, playing around on my phone. And, like, he walked back around the corner. He was like, right, done. He was like, shake my hand right now and promises that you'll sign. So I said, once I shake your hand, I was like, it's done. So in the back of my head, I knew that, like, I could go anywhere I wanted.
Exactly. Yeah.
Teams were like, if these teams were like, oh yeah, we'll take them. And then obviously I started the season a joke. Like, I think I'd scored, like, we'd played like 8 pre-season games. I think I'd scored like 17, 18 goals. And we're playing like decent level teams, you know what I mean? Like, I remember, like, Queen of the South came down, Stranraer came down and played, like, Dunstan and stuff in that pre-season. And I was like, obviously I know they're just, like, the levels up there are not as high as down here, but you're still bagging two and 3 goals in pre-season against like these professional teams. So, like, I started the season on flames. Obviously, I got a couple in the FA Cup in the early rounds, and started the league, like, really. I think I had like 12 goals in the first, like, 6 or 7 games. And then I remember I think we played Mosque on, like, a Tuesday night. I'm sure it was a home game against Mosque. And, like, we're both obviously near the top of the league. We'd both started well. And I remember I got to about like 4 or 5 o'clock, and my phone just blew up. And it was like Sky Sports News. It was like it said something like non-league hotshot attracting the interest of, like, several football league clubs. And I was just like, where the hell has this come from? Like, because obviously Twitter and everything was like, brand new. You know what I mean? And I knew you'd had a couple of, like, northeast agents, like, in that summer, like, ringing us, because obviously I think they were kind of jumping onto the interest of, like, oh, like, this Jamie Vardy had obviously just broke through, hadn't he?
Yeah,
so, like,
that's it.
I think this whole, like, insensitive of, like, there's loads of good players in non-league, like, rather than spending all this money, like, that the lower clubs haven't got, go look at these levels where these lads are, like, good players, you know what I mean? Like, well capable of taking the step up. So I just remember going into the Dunstan change room, like, because I used to always get there early because it was just up the bank, and, like, me and Terry Galbraith would go in, and Terry would be like, yeah, you seen Sky Sports? And I was like, and I was like, look, I'd had like 101 notifications on Twitter or something. And I was just thinking, like, and my phone was ringing non-stop. Everyone was just like, what's this? And I was like, I was generally like, I have not got a clue. You know what I mean? Like, I knew these teams had been, like, sniffing around, and, like, I'd had random texts, because you got to think, like, still a lot of my friends were still involved in the game. Like, Magné was in the game, Gary Medine was in the game, like, Andy Carroll was in the game. Like, these are obviously still, like, my close friends who I grew up with. And, like, I knew, like, little bits and bobs about, like, oh, like, this one's watching you, that one's watching you. But it was that game, and I just thought, like, Billy Irwin and the chairman Malcolm, like, it got to about, we normally used to meet at like 6 o'clock, and I was there early, and Billy was like, oh, Scotty, come with me. He's like, I want to chat. So, like, they took us into the office, and Malcolm was there, Billy was there, and a couple of the committee members, and he was like, oh, look, he was like, sign that. And I was like, sign what? He was like, go on, sign that. And I was like, Billy, I was like, I'm not stupid. I was like, I know what you're doing. I was like, I'm not signing that. I told you. And he was like, no, go on, just sign it. He was like, if someone comes in for you, we'll let you go. And I was just like, I'm not signing a contract. I was like, I told you in pre-season, like, that's what was happening. I wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
So like, I remember like going back into the room and just thinking like, just ignore all this. You know what I mean? If it happens, it happens. And then that night we went and scored. Like we went and beat Moss 2-0 and I got both goals. So I just went on the pitch and just did my job, and there was like a decent crowd and stuff there. And then obviously I didn't know, but like the scouts or something have to like show an ID badge
All right.
when they get into the ground or something. So like after the game, there was like Sheffield United, Chesterfield, Hartlepool, Gateshead, who else was at Fleetwood, and I was just like, this is mad. So like after that game, like a lad I knew, like obviously Danny Graham's agent, like James Tunnicliffe, had like called us, and he was just like, listen, he was like, I know Danny's a good friend of yours, like he's obviously passed on my number. He was like, I've had like so many calls about you, and like obviously I spoke to Danny, and Danny was like, listen, like I trust my company my whole life, like, you know what I mean? Like he was like, the good lads, they'll kind of look after you.
Mm-hmm.
So James was like, listen, like Fleetwood want you to go tomorrow, and I was just like, I've got uni, like, you know what I mean? I was like, I'm still doing my night classes at uni, like, I was like, you know what I mean? So it was a case of like, I think like 2 or 3 days later, I think I was on my way to Chesterfield, so I went Chesterfield first, and then it kind of just like took off from there. So, but it all happened so quick, you know what I mean? So quick.
Mm-hmm. No, really good. I mean, that's the next step is now going to be chatting about the pro game as we get on as well. But I just want to say a massive thank you. Loads and loads of people watching now. Fantastic support as always. Keep getting the comments in. There's a few coming in which we'll go through as we get at them parts as well. And please hit that subscribe button as well. Imran, even just what about Klasash Brassi? He's still at stand now. Obviously the goalkeeper. And Jack just mentioned there, Todd Bagger as well.
I love Jack.
There's a couple more that's coming in for a bit later from the Blythe days. A couple of people mentioning that as well. We'll have a few comments about that. But getting on to the pro days, and obviously signing for Hartlepool 2014. How was that signing the pro deal?
It was unbelievable. You know what I mean? It was like I went to these clubs. You know what I mean? I'd went to Chesterfield, I'd went to Sheffield United, I'd went to Fleetwood. I hadn't even played like anywhere down in the south before, and I had like offers off like Leyton Orient to it in like League Two at the time, like Colchester, and I was just thinking like, whoa. But what swung it? So like, Chesterfield offered us a year. In the end, Sheffield United, like, I went to Chesterfield, right, and smashed it. And Paul Cook was like, yeah, I want to sign you, like, let's get something done, blah, 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 blah. But then my agent, James, was like, listen, like, Nigel Clough at Sheffield United wants to see you. So, like, you know what I mean? It's like, stature of club, you've got, like, Chesterfield or Sheffield. And he was like, James was like, Scott Trusters. He was like, you don't need to dive into anything, like, straight away. He was like, everyone's starting to, like, know about you and hear about you. So I remember I went into Sheffield United and like I played in a game against like Birmingham, scored 2 on my first game, and like Nigel Clough's there, Chris Morgan, the like, you know what I mean? Chris, I'm standing beside Chris Morgan in a change room and just been like, I used to watch him on my telly like my whole life, you know what I mean? Like that's like Chris Morg's like the Sheffield captain in the Prem and everything, and like then I played against Charlton, so like Nick Pope and everyone was in goal, like Joe Gomez was the centre backs, like this is like obviously going back so when like Jason Ewell was like the Charlton manager, so like these were all like ex-pros of the game who would like obviously come into the coaching department. So I'd went to Sheffield and like trained for like the first week, scored 2 in my first game, and Nigel Clough was like, I want you to come back in next week, I need to see more of you. So like that was like an intensive week. But then at the same time, so my second week, Che Adams come in at Sheffield United, so the pair of us were on trial, and like when I say this kid was like 18-year-old, like a bloke, and like he was a joke, you know what I mean? Like my level to his was, I was miles away from him. So like, luckily for like, obviously he went on to sign, and then they went and sold him for 5 million or whatever it was. But you could see as a kid he had far more potential than what like I did. I was like 23 at the time or something. So after Sheffield United, I remember Hartlepool offered us in. Leyton Orient offered us to go down as well as Colchester, and then Hartlepool offered us to go in, and it was just like I didn't have to train. I literally like they invited us to play in a reserve game, and like funny enough, it was against Gateshead. You know what I mean? So like I literally rocked up at like Billingham Town's ground in the Northern League, and it was against Gateshead. So like a few of the Gateshead players I knew anyway. You know what I mean? Like, but I didn't really. I knew obviously some of the Hartlepool players, but not many of them. So like that, I remember that game. So we started that game against Gateshead, and I must have had about 4 or 5 chances that I'd normally bury. I don't know if I was trying too hard or like I just wanted to really score against Gateshead, but I missed a couple of sitters. So like I remember going to the change rooms, like it was obviously the Resi team and the Resi manager Sam, and obviously the first team gaffer Paul Murray was in there, and I remember like he did a team talk, and I've got like my head in my hands a little bit, thinking like, Christ, we should be like 3-4-0 up here. Like I've missed so many chances, but like Sam did this like team talk where he was like, listen, he's like, you're doing so well, blah 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 blah, and he was like, you can see this kid will score goals. So I think him saying that rather than like hammering us for missing, like we went out the second half, 1-2-0, and I got both goals. And one of the goals, I remember like I chipped, like Bart's came like running out, and like I chipped him, and it was a good finish for my second goal. And then like literally after that game, I think Paul Murray knew that I'd been to Sheffield United, like Chesterfield had offered as a contract, then Lincoln City ended up offering as a contract, like Gateshead, Gary Mills, like as I was walking off the pitch, like funny enough, like obviously Gary Mills is like cuddling us walking off the pitch, like what 6 years later I ended up playing for him. So it was like he's like walking off, just like, yeah, it's your local team, like you should be signing for us, you should be signing for us. And I just like I remember just like laughing and joking on. I was like, well, give us a contract then. And he kind of like looked at us and he was just like, well, he was like, well, you can have one, you can have one. And then it was funny, like I went into Billingham Synthonia, Billingham Town's changing room, and by this time Paul Baker was there, and Bakes was doing like the scouting for Hartlepool at the time,
right?
Which I'd totally forgot really. And then Bakes was in the room, Paul Murray was in the room, and Sam Collins was in the room. And Paul Murray was like, he's like, listen, like we'll sign you, we'll offer you 18 months, straight up. Obviously, you can live at home. We're training Durham, but like we want to make you an offer right now. So then they actually drove me from Billingham Town after the Resi game to go to Hartlepool just to like write the contract and everything up.
Right.
And then he was like, listen, obviously the office and everything's closed now, but he was like, I just wanted to make you like just make the commitment that like we want to sign you and get it done. So I went home that night, and then the next morning I was obviously like at Victoria Park. He was just like, Paul Murray was like, turn your phone off, like just be at the ground for like 9 a.m, and we'll get everything done. And then before you know it, I'm at Victoria Park on the Wednesday, like getting everything done, all my media, all my pictures, signing my contract. Like obviously James and stuff had came up from Manchester, and it kind of went from there. So like obviously Paul Murray gave us my break in football. You know what I mean? He realised something in us and thought like there's someone I can definitely work with. Like they needed a goal scorer at the time, and like I think he thought that I was the answer.
Yeah, two great people you mentioned there, like you say, Sam and Paul. Used to come watch Hartlepool a lot, and even come watch down training as well, picking up tips from yourself, coaching and stuff. From two great lads there. I know Will just mentioned, we'll remember the Pools days, Scotty, a few good goals from yourself as well. And some other great questions coming, which will add on to the quick fire round at the end. But yeah, I mean, you say that spell at Hartlepool, the goals, and I think it was just because the way that you were grafting on the pitch, you would chase every ball down, jump against any defender. I think the Pools fans took to that, didn't they? They just thought you were going out there, you're giving your all, and I think that's when you play for Hartlepool, that's what the fans want to see as well, don't they?
Yeah, but I think that's how I understand the game myself.
Yeah,
that's how I play the game. Like if you think if it's that old school striker approach, like I want to go into a game and have a fight with a centre half. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, exactly.
That's how I play. And like I always thought like if you're earning a wage from something you love, you should be giving your all like every time you go on the pitch. You know what I mean? Like you should be chasing every ball or not pulling out of tackles or heading. And maybe that's me like dropping into non-league being so early. Like, but the strikers and the football I watched growing up, like that's what the Prem was about. That's what every level of football was about. And then obviously non-league toughens you up when you're getting smashed around by centre halves every week. And like I didn't feel it was any different in League Two. You know what I mean? It was like I think fans that go and pay money to watch lads play football, I think every fan in the Northeast can accept getting beat as long as they see the like 11 lads or the 16 lads come off the pitch with like their blood and guts and sweat. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. Like you say, some good times. Like you say, one of the good times was the Great Escape, and obviously Ronnie Moore as well. What was that time like, and just how crazy was he?
You got to think it was mad. It was like it was a new environment for me because it was like I went into a change room where like I'm used to being a bit of a daft lad. You know what I mean? Like I'm loud. I'm like I tell jokes. You know what I mean? Like I love banter. And like you went into Hartlepool's change room on that Monday morning. It was like a morgue. It was like no one spoke to each other. You got the vibe that like there was cliques everywhere. No one really liked each other, and like, you were just like, what is this? Like, is this what like football's about? It's like I didn't know whether to like make jokes or like sit quietly and stuff. So I just thought, you know what it is, like I don't know any of these lads really. Like I'm just gonna go in and be myself. So I started like putting people's laces and super glue and flip flops to floors and you know what I mean? And like I remember like some of the lads would be like I think we're like 11 points adrift at the time, like rock bottom, and I'd be like bouncing around, be like, we'll not get relegated. You know what I mean? And they were just like, Scotty, shut up, man. Like, you're an idiot kind of thing. But I generally believed from when I first went in there that, like, we're not going to get relegated. And then, obviously, going through managers, like, Paul obviously lost his job after the Blythe Spartans game, which obviously I wasn't allowed to play in because I'd already played in the early round of, like, the FA Cup. So I was just like, what happens here? And then, obviously, Ronnie comes in, like, his first day, or, like, in the gym, I think, doing, like, yoga or whatever it was. And he just come upstairs and, like, he just stared at everyone, and he just laid the bottom line. He was just like, listen, he was like, it's a clean slate for all years. He was like, show me you're good enough to be here. And then from there, I just thought like, well, it's a fresh start. Like I'm on the same. You got Marlon Harewood's in the change room. You know what I mean? Like these names who have had ridiculous careers, and I was just like, well, he's just said it. Like I'm on the same level as them. You know what I mean? And like I'd train every day, and I'd get more and more confident, and like to the point where I'm not like, I don't want to sound like a prick or be arrogant or anything, but like after the first like couple of days in Hartlepool, I used to think like I'm so much better than some of yous. Like how are you actually professionals? Like we'd go to games and stuff, and I'd be thinking like I'd be like the lads that I've just left in the Northern League are like better than yous. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to sound rude or anything, but like I'd think that like I used to think like there's better lads like out there who haven't maybe had that luck or that chance in the game, but obviously at that point I was just so thankful like that I was one of them. So I thought I'm just going to give it 100% and just kind of look after myself and kind of see where it takes us. And then the Great Escape season, it's like I'm absolutely flying. You know what I mean? Like obviously go for like Player of the Month and stuff in League Two, and I'm thinking like this is like mad. Like I'm just doing what I've always done. You know what I mean? Like be in the box at the right place, right time, get on the end of crosses and stuff, and use my body and look after the ball. So I think I just learned so much in such a short space of time, and then like when you're at that level and you've got like massive teams like Portsmouth and stuff coming in for you, and you're like, wow, this is mad, and just kind of went from there. And I just thought I'm just going to get my head down and just keep grafting and keep scoring goals. And I think the manager took a bit of a liking to us, but I think he knew like he knew how to annoy us. Like Ronnie Moore never called me by my first name the entire time he was my manager. He used to always refer to us as like dog and duck, which is like in the pro game, like they call dog and duck non-league.
Right.
I think that's like it's like a bit of like it's just like a bit of like arrogance from the professional leagues where they'll call like the non-league the dog and duck. So like he'd call me that every day, and I think he used to know that it used to like annoy us and like piss us off. So I used to train angry, but like when I'm angry, I play better. Like it's I think it's a known fact. So I think he saw that in us, and he knew how to like get stuff out of us in training. You know what I mean? I didn't care who I was playing up against in training and stuff. Like Beatty became one of my closest friends at Hartlepool. Like full Prem career with Middlesbrough. Like obviously injury stopped them from playing for England and stuff. But Beatty was like, "How I Scotty, tone it down, man. It's only training." Because I'd be elbowing him and like throwing him about and running all over, and he'd be like, "Come on, man, chill out, man. It's Tuesday." And I just thought like, nah, like he's calling me dog and duck. I'm like better than all the strikers here. And that was just generally my mindset in that like stage. I used to think like I'm the best finisher in this team, and I've just come out the Northern League. And I just thought like I don't care what people's opinion of us. Like that's how I'm going to be.
I mean, that's what Greg mentioned there. Cheers for the goals and the great escape. Like I say, I was at the game, obviously staying up. It was fantastic. The atmosphere, I think it was really good. And Will just mentioned there as well. You heard mention Gary Medine earlier. What's he like? Obviously now playing at Hartlepool.
Obviously, Gaz is my Buster. So Gaz Medine's called Buster. Like as close friends as what we are. Like everyone refers to him as Buster. But in my opinion, all I would say is cherish him while he's there because he's far too good to be playing in the conference.
Yeah.
So I think
Player, isn't he? Yeah.
I think Hartlepool, as a club, as a fan base, just appreciate winning up to speed, because I think once say like the championship teams and the League One teams realise he's fully fit again, like I can't imagine he'll be there long, if I'm honest. And I don't want to disrespect Hartlepool because like that's my club, but Buster's like Gary, he's still too well. I know we're 34, but he's far too good to be playing the conference. That's just my opinion. So cherish him while he's there. But all the stuff of like everyone's got a life away from football, and you've got to think like he's a lad from the northeast who grew up on a council estate. So all this negative press and what people read about him, it's just like it's a load of bollocks. He's a great kid who loves his football, and he's one of the most genuine, down to earth lads you'll ever meet, and he goes above and beyond for people. And when he's on the pitch, he'll graft for the team. You know what I mean? 100%, he'll graft for the team.
Yeah, fantastic player. And following Hartlepool spells, York City, Dalton. Did you enjoy those spells?
I did. Like I've never not enjoyed like anywhere I haven't played. York was a hard one because like I was with Shrewsbury in the pre-season, and obviously like that was like League One, and obviously I was eager to like make the step up. You know what I mean? Like I got invited. Obviously, me and Jordan had played together, and like the last couple of games of the Great Escape, and like Tranmere wanted to take us permanently, like in the conference, and I went to Shrewsbury, and like Mickey Mellon was like wanting to get stuff done, and then like the York interest, I knew it was there from the start of pre-season. It was like I had York, Kilmarnock, Tranmere, Leyton Orient, or Shrewsbury. So I kind of had a choice. I regret the way I handled the Kilmarnock situation, like because Lee Clark was one of the first people to reach out with us, and I think I was a bit like young and naive, and I was a bit like, oh, like I'll come up like at the end of June. I'm gonna have my holiday first and like clear my head and whatnot. So I kind of regret how I regret that, because fair play to Lee Clark, like he reached out early on and like kind of like said you can have anything you want to come here. He was like, I really want you to come to Kilmarnock. He's like, I've watched loads of you, because obviously he was one that was getting touted with a job at Hartlepool when it became free.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to see him in the crowd all the time, like watching the game. So I thought like, well, you've seen us and you know how I play, so you, like obviously you must want us. But I think just like the whole point of like proving myself at like even at a higher level, and Shrewsbury wanted us to go in there, so I went in there and did my pre-season and stuff with them. Preston invited us in with Jordan Hugel, like because obviously their loan manager used to come to watch Jordan when we were playing at Hartlepool together. So I was gonna go there, but then Jackie McNamara like just rang us like directly, and he was like, "Listen," he was like, "We don't need to speak to agents." He was like, "You're a grown man." He was like, "You don't need to move away from home." But he was like, I would like you to. He was like, I'd like you to come in, move into York. He was like, we're a massive club, which you obviously know that. And he was like, Paul Baker speaks very, very high of you. He was like, I know there's a lot of interest from like Scotland and stuff, and you're away with Shrewsbury at the moment. But he was like, I want a 9. He was like, we need forwards. And he was like, York's a massive club. And he was like, we're going for this title. So I was like, obviously I sat down. Bakes was a good influence on us again. He was like, Bakes was like, it's one of my ex-clubs. He was like, you get well looked after. He was like, it's a beautiful city. So it kind of was like they were high in the contract, like right in front of my face, like on us, like every day, like like let's get this done. And I think you learn pretty quickly in football of like when the contract's in front, you know, you want your signature on it. That's when you start believing it. Like I learned that later on in life. You know what I mean? Like you get promised the world at times, and then for whatever reason, at the last hour, it can change. So I remember I left Shrewsbury and I drove down that afternoon, and York put us in like a little apartment. And then before training the next day, I just went to the stadium and got everything signed, met the chairman, met like Jackie and Sid. Sid Donnelly, and even that was a bit surreal. You know what I mean? Like I'm sitting in the room with Jackie McNamara, like because I like Celtic's my Scottish team because my favourite colour was green, and like my dad's best friend was a Rangers fan, so he used to deliberately put us in Celtic kits to like annoy his mate. But like obviously I grew up watching Jackie McNamara, like Scotland captain, Celtic captain, like legend, and I was like now I'm opposite him, like in a little room in the chairman's office in York. So I got that done, and again started the season on absolute flames in pre-season, scoring every week. Had a little like got invited to go to Blackburn on trial because I scored 2 against them in pre-season, and like Owen Coyle was like joking with me, and Jackie as we're walking off the pitch saying, "Oh, I'll give you the money for him and stuff." So it just made us feel good, and I kind of had that mindset of like, fair enough, I've proved that and score goals in the league above. I'm going to drop down and like I want to be at the top of the goal scoring chart. You know what I mean? Get a promotion under my belt. Like that's generally how I felt when I went to York. It just obviously wasn't the case.
Yeah, I mean, like you see, after that, with the parts I love is obviously your Facebook and your pictures that you've been putting on as well, traveling all over the place playing football, which I think it's the best bit, making their memories up at the Maltese clubs, Irish clubs, Scottish, like you say, Forfar, Cork, as well, Australia, just come back. I mean, how good is it just traveling all over the world, making their memories, playing different setups, playing in different leagues? How good is it?
Well, that's what I mean. It's like I'm so glad I've done it because like you think of some of my mates that have had like good careers in England or whatnot, and they've played in the same league, or say they've played in the Conference or League Two or the Champ their whole life. Like I've met lads that like I would never ever have met if I had stayed in England. Like I moved to Malta, and like the goalkeeper at Malta, Christoph, he's now one of my best friends in the world. You know what I mean? Like we traveled to and from Austria and England to like see each other, and like it was like I went to Malta, and like a hotel room. It was like this guy was Austrian, but he was me, but just a kid from Austria. We're like the same music. We're like eating the same food. It was just like I would have never known that lad ever existed unless I went to Malta.
Yeah, exactly.
So like now we're like travel back and forward. Like I had like a Brazilian strike partner. Like my centre mid was Paraguayan. Like I played against like Zambrotta, who won the World Cup with Italy. You know what I mean? Like some lads in the Prem don't even get to play against World Cup winners. You know what I mean? Like, and I didn't Malta. Like I formed relationships with lads out there that I still speak to, and I've always said like I'm always glad because each group chat that you're always in football, like you kind of dwindle away and you forget about lads and you don't see them for years. But like I'm still in most of my group chats from each club I've played to, like with little core skills or whatever. So like it's like a good feeling for me sometimes because I think like I've obviously formed like a closer bond than just teammates with some of these boys.
That's amazing, really. But like you say, in the mix of that as well, obviously you still got the likes of the spells of Blythe, Chelmsford working in some massive non-league clubs. I know there's a couple of people that commented very early in the show about the Blythe. I mean, what was your time at there? And a couple of mentioned Lee Clark, or what was he like as a manager?
So, well, people, I'm never gonna tarnish anyone in football because, like, you know what I mean. You kind of need to. You've got to respect everyone because you never know when. You never know. I'll never ever. I might need Lee Clark again in the future for a reference or whatever. So I'd never come on here and like slate anyone. But Blythe like went out above and beyond for me to get us back home. You know what I mean? The owner of Chelmsford, the guy who owns Texco, became the main sponsor of Blythe. So Chelmsford actually wanted, like, me and Reece Murphy did so well together, like we almost broke like the National League like record like for goals and assists between a strike partnership, and we both had opportunities to go to like higher clubs in the January. So I actually was going to sign for Grimsby, or I was going to sign for Lincoln again, and like it never happened because Rod Stringer, like the legend that he is, like he was like, he's not going for free. He was like some of the money kicked around for like players now. He's like, I can easily get 50 grand for you each. And like we joke on and say, no one's going to pay 50 grand for a Conference South player. You know what I mean? He was like, no. He was like, they will. He was like, I'll make sure of it. So part of it, when the season finished and we lost another playoff final, I had an option here. But like Rod wanted to activate and Reece didn't because Reece only signed a 1 year deal, so he was free. in the June when the season finished. So I had said to Rod, like, the lad I was living with, Jake Carroll, was moving to Scotland. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to live in Essex and pay like a £1,500 a month rent bill, like on my own. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I need another, like, if I'm going to stay, I need another lad to move in with us. And he was like, give us a bit of time, we'll find it. And then in the meantime, it was like the guy who obviously owned Chelmsford ended up becoming the main sponsor of Blythe. And then we just had like a little conversation on the phone. And he was just like, what brought you down south anyway? And I just I told him the reason, like Winter Wonderland, obviously the crack that I had with Malta. And he was like, listen, would you not head back up to the northeast? And I was like, I'd love to, but I was like, there's no way Blythe Spartans are going to be able to afford like the money that I get for playing down here. Like, to be fair, in Chelmsford, we were on a lot of money for the Conference South. You know what I mean? Like, I know we lost the playoff final, but the budget we had, like, we should have probably walked the league. You know what I mean? The quality of players we had in that squad was scandalous. So I'd been open and honest, and I was like, listen, like, Blythe Spartans are like, they're a non-league team, fair enough, great history and stuff, but I was like, they don't pay this sort of wages. I was like, this is my full-time job. You know what I mean? And he was just like, nah. He's like, leave it with me. So anyway, like, I remember Lee Clark rang and he was like, listen, he was like, I've heard you coming. He was like, I've heard you coming home. And I've just said, I was like, well, Chelmsford's kind of saying like the let us leave for free as long as I go to the northeast, or as long as I go to the north, because I did have offers from like Wood, Bromley, Crawley, Leighton Orient again. So I'd actually went for a medical at Leighton Orient, and then obviously Justin Edinburgh passed away, didn't he?
Yeah.
So that was one of the most surrealist experiences again. Like, I thought I was signing for them, and then like my phone went quiet, and I was thinking, and then I seen all the news, and my agent rang, and he was like, Scott, the manager, like, bless him, like he's passed away. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. So, Lee, he was like, I'll do anything I can to bring you home. But that at that time, I think the rumours started coming round that I was coming home. So Jason Ainsley and Tommy.
Williams, yeah.
Why have I forgot Tommy's name? Why have I forgot his second name? Aye, Miller. Why? You just call him Tommy, never call him Tommy Miller. So like Jason and Tommy like made us go to Spenny, and like obviously they showed us all the plans for the ground, and like they'd obviously bought a big like field and stuff at the back of Spenny where they were turned into like a complex and a training ground. And then Alan Armstrong rang us from Darlow, and like it was just like, you've got Spenny, you've got Darlow, which no disrespect to Blythe, but like there were bigger teams at the time. You know what I mean? Like bigger budgets, bigger teams. Like Spenny had floated around the playoffs. Like Darlow's a massive club for the Conference North. You know what I mean? And like, but like it was kind of Chelmsford saying like, listen, you can go to Spenny. You can go to Blythe, because obviously the chairman was the main sponsor of Blythe, and Lee Clark was like, I'll do anything I can to get you here. And I was like, listen, this is what I'm on it. Like, this is what I'm on at Chelmsford. And he was like, oh, you're going to have to like speak to the chairman and whatnot. So I remember like traveling up, and everyone knows what non-league's about. You know what I mean? And it was like, I went into like this little room with like Tony and the other guy, Mike, I think it was. And fair play to them. Like, they broke the bank to sign us. You know what I mean? I got like a ridiculous sign-on fee. And I remember like the manager had said, like, Lee had texted when I came out the office, and he was like, you obviously must have good negotiating skills, because he was like, he texted saying like, you're the highest paid player Blythe's ever had, or something like that. So I felt like, oh well, you won us, you've done everything you can to get us, but like, how am I meant to know that like 3 games into the season I'm going to break my ankle?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like everyone's like, oh, he was doing this, he was doing that, and it was like the manager had like got in touch with us and said, do you mind signing some of your contract away, because the club can't afford to pay you that much, like when you're not playing? And I was like, Gaffer, I was like, this is my full-time job. Like, I don't have another job. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, I've still got a mortgage to pay and bills to pay. I was like, if I was like, when you were at Fulham, I was like, and you got injured, did your manager come in and just say, oh, do you mind taking like 200 quid a week pay cut, so I can sign another lad on loan to cover you when you're gone? I was like, you would have told him to do one. So I think it's from there, like, I just felt like they started to make my life hell. You know what I mean? Obviously the club were doing horrendously, because like no disrespect, like the lads that were recruited were not good enough for the Conference North.
Yeah, I remember the
You know what I
time.
mean? And I think obviously Lee and Lee had come from a level where like the mistakes players make in the Conference North, they don't make it pro level. Like you don't have to give pros as much information as you do these lads in the Conference North. But no disrespect to the lads in the Conference North. A lot of the lads we signed were 17, 18, 19-year-olds from academy football that had no taste, that had no taste of what non-league was about, especially the Conference North. I think now is classed as what? It's the highest semi-professional, but most of the teams are professional now. So it's like the lowest professional league in the country, yeah, with like most of the players have played like 300-400 games in the football league, and they're coming down dropping part-time to go into coaching and whatnot. So like we're signing boys from like your Hulls and your Blackburns and Burnleys and stuff, 18-year-old, throwing them into the game, and they were getting bullied, and you are losing every week, you know what I mean? So I think he was a professional manager who didn't understand the level. And I think that's why he didn't do well enough. But at the same time, the way he went about things as a person, I lost a lot of respect for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I lost a lot of respect for him. Like, and I think he knew early on he couldn't bully me like he could with the younger lads. You know what I mean? Like I'm not scared. I'm not scared of anyone. My dad's 6'4". Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't come for us and not expect us to come back for you if I disagree with something you say. Like, I understand I've got a job to do, and I understand like at times I wasn't doing my job. I wasn't scoring goals and what in the relegation zone, but like I had played 3 games, broke my ankle, and then I'd been out for X amount of months, and then you threw us straight back in without any fitness. It was like I got my cast off. And when I'm not lying and saying I got my cast off and went to training on the Tuesday night with Niche, and Niche was like, "Oh, he wants you to do like a 12-minute run," and I was like, "What?" He was like, "Oh, well, we're going for like a run around the pitch, like this 12-minute." So I remember like running around, and I started like turning around the corner flag, and my ankle was like throbbing. I was like, and I was getting to the point where I was in that much pain. I was like, Nisha, like this is not fixed yet. It's not right. I need to strengthen it. I need to do rehab. I need to do this. So like by this time, I remember like contacting my Hartlepool physio. I was like, Buster, and I went to see Buster, and he was like, you're nowhere near fit. He was like, look how much scar tissue and fluid and stuff's in your ankle. He's like, we need to get rid of that. So I was actually going to see my old Hartlepool physio at the same time as going to see Niche every day, driving up to his house in Chopwell every morning to go do my rehab with him. And I was just thinking, like, I am doing my best to get back fit for you. And I was like, you're still treating us like a dick, saying that, like, I don't care and I'm just here to pick up my money. And I felt like eventually, because I was like, without sounding like arrogant or whatever, I was the highest profile player in that squad. It was like, oh, I'll make his life hell. You got to remember, Robbie was there. Robbie Dale is Blythe Spartans through and through. Like, he is the pinnacle of Blythe Spartans, and we all know this in the Northeast. He made Robbie's life hell from the minute pre-season started. And I was a bit like, I felt he tried to drive a wedge between me and Robbie straight away because he took the captaincy off Robbie and give it to me.
Right.
And I was like, why? I was like, I was like, I'll be a captain on the pitch, but I was like, I don't need an armband on my arm. I was like, that's Robbie Dale's job. So I remember like we won like a pre-season Texaco tournament, and like I've got the captain's armband on, and I tried to take it off and give it to Robbie so he could put it on to lift the trophy. And Robbie like threw the band away. Like, oh, like I don't want to be falling out with Robbie. You know what I mean? Like this is not my decision. But I think obviously Robbie was just getting like that pissed off with the way how he was being treated before the season had even started. Like we just started the season on the wrong foot straight away. And I remember like with both of us, we didn't start the York game. We had like York at home on a Tuesday night. I think it was the second game of the season. And like me and Robbie are like we're on the bench. Like I'm not being rude, but I didn't ever expect to be on the bench at Blythe. You know what I mean? Like like I was thinking I was brought in here to play, and I was like I knew I was good enough to play. and he was just like, I remember he did a team talk before the game, and it was just like, oh, I'm keeping my secret weapons on the bench. And me and Robbie's like looking at each other, thinking like, do you know that like this is the Conference North? Like, there's no like tinkering. Like, you start your best 11 lads to win the game because every
Yeah.
game's like a fight every week. And I think before we know it, like we're 3-0 down after 15 minutes. Me and Robbie's like looking at each other, thinking like, well, what the hell are we meant to do now? Like, a full-time outfit's just come to Blythe, and me and you sitting on the bench. Bearing in mind that's one of my ex teams, so I was so excited to play against them. And so I think like little things like that just like started to get in my head, and I thought like, are you trying to annoy me? Because I did mess up when it came to Kilmarnock. Like, I went around it the wrong way like a few years before that, and I don't know if he was like in a mood that I had rejected him back then. I felt like this was a bit of his like payback, where he thought like, I don't know who you think you are, kind of thing, but like this is my way of like paying you back, kind of thing. And to be fair, but it wasn't my fault that Blythe paid us so much money, because I didn't come into the season expecting to be injured. You know what I mean? I didn't expect to get injured straight away. And I'm like, I still had a mortgage to pay and bills to pay. Like, it was my full-time wage. And like, I'm sorry that like the club didn't have the money, but at the same time, it's a short career and I need to look after myself as well. You know what I mean? Blythe fans just have to remember, like, in that pre-season and whatnot. I know pre-season doesn't mean anything, but like, I grafted my arse off. I'd scored like 12 or 13 goals. Like, I'd went into that season feeling class, but I knew the lads in the squad weren't good enough to play at that level. You know what I mean? And I think those boys knew themselves. You know what I mean? And it's like, what's the point of me ranting and raving on a Tuesday and Thursday night when he's already doing it to these young lads that like they're just gonna zone out from him? You know what I mean? So I think his man management skills let him down in that spell at Blythe, but at the same time, he didn't really understand the level he was at, and he probably made a mistake. And I know further on now, like, I know he was having a few problems like away from football and off the pitch. Like, I know that his dad and stuff was probably ill. So when you come into like the human being side of things, like, I'm not annoyed at him and I don't hate him for the way he treated us, because I think he was in a place himself where he was probably, football was probably his escape, and he was going around it the wrong way, because I think he had, I think he had like off-field personal problems, and I think he just like, I don't know, like maybe he took it out on me or he took it out on a few other players, but it's football, you know what I mean? I'm a strong enough character. Like, if I seen him, I'd still shake his hand and call him gaffer, because I'll have that respect for him for the rest of my life. And he was an unbelievable player, but I just think like, I think he'd be disappointed in himself when he gets a bit older and he's looked back on his career. Maybe it's the way he treated people, like at Blythe, in particular me. You know what I mean? Because he had Buster like Gary Medine at Blackpool. You know what I mean? And like the three of us like would go for coffees and stuff when I first signed, and would talk about like our careers and not. And he would even say to us, he's like, you shouldn't be playing he's like, you shouldn't be playing at this level. He's like, you should be playing higher. He was like, you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. So he'd always give us that confidence. But then when things started going wrong, he just changed. And I don't know, like, he treated me horrendously, if I'm honest. But it happens in football, you know what I mean? When you're injured, you're worthless to a manager. And especially what Blythe were paying us, you know what I mean? Like, it was ridiculous money for the Conference North for Blythe. You know what I mean? But I don't want the fans to ever think that I was only there for the money and stuff, because I wasn't. Like, I was generally so excited to come home, and like, I knew they were like a historic club and stuff, and like, I generally wanted to be there. Just, I got injured, which happens in football, and unfortunately it was a big injury that kept us out for a lot of months.
Yeah, and I think that's what I love doing these shows, that to give you a voice to kind of your times at clubs and stuff. Because I think a lot of the fans, you see the social media page, you see the website, and you don't see the full story, which I think it's always good to get the word out there. I mean, you mentioned one name there, Buster Hartlepool. I think we do a full show on him. What a great lad he is as well.
He's one of the best blokes I've ever come across in my life. Like, I literally went to see him a couple of weeks ago, because like, I don't know why, but like, since I was a kid, the only person in this world that I trust with my body. Like, I feel as if like his eyes are like an X-ray. Like, he can look at us and he'd be like, oh, it's because of that, or like, right, we need to look after this. Like, he kind of just knew about us like straight away, and I think with all these lads, and I think all of us speak so highly of him because like he generally cares about you.
Yeah.
Like he wants every one of his players to be on the pitch, but at the same time, he never allows you to put your body in risk of where like it's gonna like deteriorate you long term. Like if he says like you need 4 weeks rest, he will not let you play for 4 weeks. And then like once you finish the season like injury free, you're like he's like, told you. I told you I was right. You know what I mean? So I love him. He's the bloke's a legend.
Great lad. And before we get on our quick fire round, just want to mention that obviously the time at Con6. I know Jason will kill us if I don't mention it. I know he was on the show last week and he said, please ask him about it. Enjoy your time up there.
Yeah, I did. I mean, again, like, obviously, I had my knee operation, so I didn't have a pre-season or whatever. So I was a bit like, I knew I needed like a keyhole and stuff in my knee for like a long time. So I thought like, right, I'll just get it done. Like, I'm not gonna like. I was playing like I signed for Working for a little bit, and I was playing with a knackered knee. You know what I mean? Like they knew that, but obviously, what on the verge of getting promoted, and it was the first time of us like dropping into like proper part time for like a long time. And I thought like I'm just going to get this operation done in the summer. So I got it done. I obviously spoke to like a lot of clubs around the northeast to say like, right, I'm ready to stay at home. Like obviously I was going to sign for Dunstan as well, and like I remember like Jake Orwell's like my barber. Jake was like, why don't you just come to concert? He was like, it's good lads. Like it's just up the road. He was like, we're obviously we've just been promoted, and I was just like, and I but like I was like, the budget's like crap, you know what I mean? I was like, it's 3G, and he was like, Scott, he was like, you'll love it, you'll get like a feel for it again. So I remember like the manager rang us, Andy, and it was like coming to and from. And to be fair, like I went and like I started training with Spenny, and Jason was like, listen, we'll get you fit. He was like, keep training, we'll get you fit, and then we'll do something when you're fit. And I was a bit like, I didn't want to just be training like and not playing like for free. You know what I mean? I was like, I still want to earn a bit of money from football. And then obviously I just signed for contact. And like I went in, Frank looked after us. Andy Coyle looked after us. Like I came on, did well straight away, and then behind the scenes there's like a big bust up, and like Andy leaves after like 10 days of us being there. And I'm like, oh, here we're going again. Like, there's another manager I'm getting sacked. You know what I mean? So Tony Fawcett came in, and I remember his first interview, right? Because I didn't know nothing about him. I didn't know nothing about Tony at all. I just knew he was coming from Wickham, and his first conversation in the changing room, right? It was something like, I don't care who you are, I don't care where you've played from, or where you've played, or how high you've played. He was like, I don't take no shit. It's a level playing field. He was like, but my philosophy is like winning games or something. So I remember like we went out to train, and in my head I was thinking like that whole thing like aimed at me, as if like I've got like some sort of bad reputation or something. So I was like, you know how it is? Like, nah, I'm not standing for this. So I was like, I waited behind after training, like knocked on his door. I was like, can I have a word? And I was like, was that like team talk thing like a dig at me? And he was like, no, son. He was like, no, no, no. He was like, obviously, he was like, I've spoke about you a couple of times, like, and obviously, people got like different opinions of us and stuff. And I just stood there and looked at him, and I was like, listen, I was like, do not take an opinion of anyone in the Northeast who doesn't know me as a human being, because people don't know who I am. Like only the people I've worked under, clubs or like coaches I've had or managers I've had, know me as a lad and as a person. I was like, or all my teammates knows as a person. I was like, don't listen to all these little rumors like from this one and that one saying I'm this and I'm that, because I guarantee I am nothing like that. And he was like, I'll judge you like based on how I see fit. And I think like he knew I was a good lad instantly from the way like I treat everyone and like the way I played, like the way we trained, and like I did well for Tony. I mean, I scored a lot of goals. Like it showed you when I left. You know what I mean? Like I left in the January, when the playoffs, when I left, like we're second place in the league, and like I'm not saying this is all down to me, but like I left in January to go to Australia, and they won one game out the next 14. So like I think that speaks for itself at concert. You know what I mean? Like I think when I eventually left, I think everyone else kind of realised how like important I was for that team.
Mm-hmm.
But I love
Yeah, like
that
I say,
type of concept.
playing yourself in
It's a
front,
great
wasn't
family club, and like Jason and everything, like they travel to and far from everyone. And Frank
it?
looked after us as best he could. And as soon as I got off the plane, and he sent us a message straight away saying you can have anything you want to come back, kind of thing. But just taking my time for now.
I mean, that's what we're going to just after the quick fire, your next steps. But quick fire round, I'm really looking forward to this one. There's a couple of people put a couple of questions earlier which kind of tie in with the questions that we go through. But number one, and I think there's a couple of people that to mention as well. Who would you say the best manager that is that you worked under and why?
It would be like it would be a toss up between Rod Stringer at Chelmsford and Ronnie Moore at Hartlepool.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I'd put them both in the same bracket is like when I say old school managers who don't take no crap. It's like
Yeah.
if you back answered either one of them, never mind like chucking a water bottle off your eye, the pair of them would hang you up on the back of a door. You know what I mean? And like I always think like I do like the relationship between like the manager, the gaffer, he's the boss and you're the player. Like I do
Mm-hmm.
think as my careers went on that this player power is getting too big for its boots, and too many players have got too much of an opinion these days. And personally, for me, I play better for managers that just tell me how it is. Like
Yeah.
if I'm dropped, don't come and give us the bollocks of like, right, we're just resting your legs this week. Like we've got two important games next week. Just do what they did. And Rod was like, you were shit on Saturday. You got bullied, so you're not playing.
Mm-hmm.
Or Ronnie was like, you didn't hold the ball up enough, so you're not playing. You know what I mean? So like, I always preferred that. So I'd always say them too.
Yeah. Excellent. Number two, best teammate that you played with and why?
Looking back
Lots.
in what I've done, I've had loads. You know what I mean? I've had ridiculous amounts of players that have had like amazing careers. You've got Andy Carroll's from school, Buster from the district, like championship footballers. But I think partnership wise, if I played with Reece Murphy in any team in the country, like it was just there was something about him where I knew where he would be and he knew where I would be, and I think it proved in like the year we had it in the Conference South, like we scored like we had over like I think it was over 70 odd goals and assists
Mm-hmm.
between us, and I just think like this whole Dwight Cole and Andy Cale, like sorry, Dwight York and Andy Cole thing from the 90s, where like
Nice. Yeah.
apparently they didn't like each other, but they just bonded so well on the pitch. And I think with me and Reece, we did like each other. You know what I mean? We weren't the best of mates, and would obviously argue a lot because I think we were both the big names in the squad, and we
Mm-hmm.
both wanted that alpha of the squad of like I'm the most important players, and I think like off the pitch we probably weren't as close as we maybe should have been, but like on the pitch I felt untouchable with him, and like I remember going to Yeovil and being on trial not long ago, and we had a behind closed doors friendly against some team, and we won 4-0, and I scored all four, and me and him played up front, and he wasn't playing in the Yeovil first team at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
I just remember thinking like, we remember just both walking off, and he
Yeah.
was like making a joke saying like, "Why do I hate you so much? But we're so good together on the pitch," and we're both just kind of laughing. So I'd
Excellent,
say
man.
Reece.
And number three, which might I know Tony asked earlier on about who's the best centre half that you played with, might be this one, but who was the best opposition player that you played against?
Well, again, I've played against some top players. You know what I mean? Some Prem players, some like international players. I think I always remember playing against Sylvain Distin for Bournemouth because obviously being like he was an ex-loanee. You know what I mean? Like when I say a colossal man, like this guy was the biggest, like strongest bloke, and I
Massive
felt like
unit, wasn't
you'd get past him, and even that I think he was like 34, 35 when I played against him, but like he was still rapid as well, so you'd feel like you were past him, and then he would like nip in front of you and like take the ball off you again. You know what I mean? So I'd definitely say like I'd say Sylvain Distin or Joe Gomez. They would be the two biggest ones who I thought like
and
I've been in for a tough ride here.
the number four would be your best footballer moment so far.
I think it's still got to be like scoring the goal for Hartlepool against Exeter.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like because of how important that goal was, and people forget like you drop into the conference the first time, like the financial state Hartlepool were in, like there was rumours of like the whole backroom staff, like even all the girls in the offices, because Hartlepool were making redundancies already. So like every single person that had an association with that football club, like the bar staff, the catering staff, even the cleaners, they were all panicking, thinking that they were going to lose their jobs. So I think when the manager installed that into us of like, you're not just playing for the football club and the fans, you're kind of playing for like people's livelihoods and jobs. So I knew how important it was to win that game. So like, obviously you find out later on, but like I always say, like people say, it was like the 500 grand goal kind of thing to like kickstart off onto that win. So I think that's my best moment still.
Yeah, great game it was. And number 5, what would be your funniest football moment? Definitely plenty there, I imagine.
I've got millions. I've got millions, But I think one that always will stick out, right? I think under the cosh has helped because I used to say to my mates, right, we would go to a pub on a Friday. When we were at York, we would go to a pub on a Friday. It was called the Black Bull in Northampton, and it was the manager's brother-in-law or something like that. And when I say we would used to get drunk or like tipsy and drink on a Friday before a game, all my mates were like, full of crap. No, you don't. You're professional footballers. Blah 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 blah. And I'd be like, I swear on my mum's life, we drink on a Friday before an away game because the gaffer sees it as like bonding. Like they did it at Nottingham Forest, and he like they won the UEFA Champions League twice. You know what I mean? Brian Clough used to do it with them, so Gary Mills used to do it with us. And I remember like one day it was before we had Dover away, right? And he was like, "Go on, you can have a few more." So you had big John Parky can drink for fun. And when I say like he's 6 or 7 pints down, Guinness down, right? He's 6 or 7 pints down. But we had this centre half from down south called Matt Fry. So Matt Fry's like trying to keep up with John and like drink, and we're just playing like pool and darts and skittles and stuff we used to play in the pub. Or some of the lads would be outside playing two touch or whatnot. But it brought it together, like 100% brought it together. But anyway, like Matt Fry's got himself drunk. Like we're like dancing on, singing songs in the bar and whatnot, and he's like just out of nowhere, he's went, Gaffer, like I'm out of contract in the summer, like you're the best manager I've played for, like I want a new deal. So he said this in front of the whole squad, like I want a new deal in the middle of this bar, and the gaffer's just like looked at him like laughing and went like, talk to us tomorrow. So like we're all like looking at each other, think like, is he being for real? He's asked for a new deal when we're in a pub, like in front of all of us. And we were like all laughing, got back on the bus, got to the hotel, played Dover. Swear down, right, we've started this game. Like I was on the bench, I was raging because I'd played the week before and would won. So I was on the bench, so I was like sitting on the bench, and like we started the game, right. I think we're 2-0 down inside 13 minutes. Like Ricky Miller scored two goals for Dover. Matt Fry's playing centre back, and when I say like his eyes are so bloodshot because he's still like hungover from the day before, and you just see like the gaffers like looking at Kasky and going like shouting and swearing, but like he's terrible, like he's coming off, blah 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 blah, and then like so Matt the subs, I think it was like 23 minutes or something, or 25 minutes. The number goes up and the gaffer drags Matt off with 2-0 down. And I think Sean Rooney went on to right back and he brought someone into centre back and like reshuffled the pack. And as Matt Fry's like walking off the pitch, like the gaffer goes, like, am I allowed to swear?
Oh yeah, right.
So the gaffer goes like, as Matt's like walking off the pitch, right? Like you can see his head's up his arse, like he's sweating with all the drinks coming out of him, and he's like walking over with his like head down, and the gaffer goes, "New fucking deal, you'll never fucking play for me again. Now sit down there." So like I'm like on the bench like behind her, and like we're all like kind of looking at each other, not knowing what to say, and like I've got me like coat like this. And I'm like laughing at the back of the change rooms, like trying to hide and thinking like, you're the one that let him drink, you know what I mean? Like, are you expecting him to play well? But then, funnily enough, we drew that game 2-2.
Uh-huh.
and we ended up drawing 2-2, and we nearly won. But like my mate didn't believe that we drank on a Friday until Parky did his own under the cosh, and he was like, right, he's like, I'm retiring, I'm done. He was like, I'm telling everyone the stories, and he spoke about like this drinking thing at York, and then all my mates were texting saying like, oh my God, like I'm sorry, I believe you, like Parky's just said it under the cosh, and I was like, why would I say that? I was drinking on a Friday, like you know what I mean? Like it was mad, but we finished top of the form table from January to May. And I think if we never had such a bad start under Jackie with the players we had, you think Gary Mills
Yeah,
came into York and transfer listed 21 players out of a
crazy, wasn't it?
25-man squad, and he only kept 4 of us, and I was one of the 4 that he kept because I knew I was good enough to play at that level. The rest weren't. Let's be honest, they weren't. But like from January to May, when he got his own team, like we were top of the form table. You know what I mean? We had drew too many games like before Gary Mills came in, and like I don't care what people say, like him taking us to that pub on a Friday, getting we all together, taking our phones and stuff out off with to get with to
Yeah,
talk and play pool and play darts. I I think his methods work, if I'm honest,
cool.
because I still speak
Fantastic
to those
memories.
York lads now.
Yeah,
We
brilliant
loved
man,
it.
isn't it? Class. We've got to ask you as well, Scott, before we go, because I know there's a few people put the comments in as well, asking if you're retired, what's going on? Are you looking for a new club? Are you in Australia and England? I know you might not say too much, but what's going on?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back in the UK definitely. Like I came back because obviously I had a family problem at home. Like I went and lost my nan, so I did come back early.
Yeah,
So I'm moving to Lincolnshire. Like my partner's from down here, and her business and everything's down here. So I am moving to Lincolnshire. But I am free. I'm just waiting for my international clearance to come through. Like I've got about 3 or 4 offers. From down here. So I'm just going to wait for my clearance to come through, but I'm still far too young to hang it up. And
definitely.
I think coming back off the fact of being back professional Australia and doing so well, scoring so many goals, it's give us like a new buzz again. And
Yeah,
like it
that,
killed us last weekend for the bank holiday not playing, but I'm just itching to get my boots back on now. So I am free, ready to go. I just literally need to wait for my clearance to come through, and I should be signing for someone in the next couple of days.
great here. As Tony mentioned there, great show, like I say, fantastic. Honestly, having you on, it's been absolutely fantastic going through the memories, the stories, and the clubs that you played for. So thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate it, man. I enjoy it. You know what I mean? It allows players to like kind of express things that like fans kind of don't
Yeah,
share. You know what I mean? And I know Blive's going through a bit of a turbulent time again now, but maybe they'll kind of understand like what you're kind of dealing with from behind the scenes as well, and from a player's point of view. And I didn't just come for money. I just got a bad injury, and it was bad things behind the club. And then COVID came, so we kind of all were struggling.
excellent. But I'll let you go and watch the highlights. I think we've won on penalties. I think if you'll
I
remember
think
that here.
I think my mum's just texted saying we've made hard work because all my family's at the game. You know what I mean? I was the only one not to go.
Class.
So I think she just said we've made hard work with that, but at least we're through.
Brilliant. But again, massive. Everyone's still watching now. Thank you so much. Like you said, please keep hitting that subscribe. Help the channel grow as much as we can. We've got loads coming up over the next few weeks as well. So thank you always for your support. But also, Scott, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your night as well there.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot, James.